Now, I actually debated with myself on whether to review Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 in one video as opposed to two separate videos. But I feel like I have a lot to say, and I don't want to just sound like I'm rambling for one video. So I'm just going to review each movie individually. Probably be easier that way. This is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Part 1 of the finale to Harry's story released in November of 2010. This would be the point where Harry starts up his 7th and final year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, but he's not going back this year for two reasons. One is that things in the wizarding world are as dark as ever. The Death Eaters are coming back into power. They've taken over the Ministry of Magic, basically turning it into the Nazi party. Dumbledore is dead, and Professor Snape, who killed Dumbledore and is revealed to be a Death Eater, is now the headmaster at Hogwarts. So things have gone to absolute shit. Furthermore, Voldemort is slowly starting to come back into power, but he has to kill Harry Potter. But unfortunately, their two wands are like brothers, so they can't really do much to each other. So Voldemort goes on a hunt to find the most powerful wand in existence, the Elder Wand, which is the one that Dumbledore had. So if he gets the hand on this, then that's not good at all. However, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are on a quest on their own that Dumbledore set into motion. In Half-Blood Prince, Harry and Dumbledore learned about these items called Horcruxes, which basically means that any individual can place their soul in anything, and if they die, they can use that to come back to life. So they find out that Voldemort has split his soul into 7 pieces and hidden them in 7 objects, and we learn that 2 of them have been destroyed. So that's all the trio knows. They found a Horcrux, but they have no idea how to destroy it. So it's basically these 3 characters hiding out from Death Eaters and trying to figure out how to destroy these Horcruxes. Now, up until Deathly Hallows Part 1, no one has ever really done this before, taking one book and splitting it into 2 movies. It's a trend that has really gotten old really quick, mainly thanks to Lionsgate for splitting up the finales of Twilight, Hunger Games, and Divergent just for the sole purpose of making more money. So if you can blame anybody for this Part 1, Part 2 trend, you can blame Harry Potter for it. However, people have told me that no, there's a lot of material to adapt from Deathly Hallows, so making it as one movie would not have worked. So when I first saw it, I was thinking to myself, you know what? This is a really good movie. It's not great, and I'm still unsure of how I feel about the split, because maybe it would have been better and it would have had a tighter pace if it would have just been a 3.5 hour long movie. But I would be lying if I said that this movie didn't have great things in it. One thing I love in this movie is that you really get a true sense of danger. The bad guys are in power, the good guys are on the run, and our three heroes have literally nothing to work with outside of what they have. They have no outside help. It's a struggle to watch because if you've really been attached to these characters, then it's really emotional to see them go through their ups and downs in this movie. I also gotta say that you hate the villains in this movie. Like I said, the Death Eaters have taken over the Ministry of Magic, and they pretty much turned it into the Nazi party, where they say that Muggles cannot live in the same world as wizards and witches, and if you're Muggle-born, you can't be a wizard or a witch. So they are basically hunting down and killing Muggle-borns, similar to how the Nazis hunted down and killed Jews. You are absolutely in disgust with these villains, and it makes you root for our heroes even more. This next compliment is going to sound really repetitive, but like the other movies, it has really good performances, especially when it comes to the 3 main actors. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson have really evolved as actors since the first Harry Potter movie. And what I also love about this series, especially from the perspective of a 90s kid, you literally watch them grow as kids throughout this movie into teenagers, into young adults, and you grew up with them. And I think for people in my age range, it makes us more emotionally invested in these characters because we grew up with them pretty much. The movie also has beautiful cinematography. Not as good as Half-Blood Prince, but still very beautiful. And probably the most beautiful thing in this movie visually is the story of the Deathly Hallows, which is narrated by Hermione. It's an animated sequence that goes on for quite a while, and it's really amazing that a super expensive, money-making franchise like Harry Potter would go out of their way to do something as visually creative as this. And I also really love how it's told as a folktale, similar to how Palpatine tells Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith about the story of Darth Plagueis. He tells it as folklore, as a legend, and that's how the story of the Deathly Hallows is told here. And this is like the little tiny last bit of world building that the film series would ever do. And it's really a gorgeous moment. Now, even though that this is part one of a two-part thing, I do love how this movie is probably the most diverse in terms of its location, because this is the first Harry Potter movie not to take place at Hogwarts. It take place in quite a few locations, and even though it is connected to the final part of the story, it does add a little variety to it, even if most of the movie is Harry and his friends camping. Now, I do have some problems in this movie, one of which I can forgive because I've seen how the series ends. But the first problem that I really have, and I really hate to criticize this one aspect, but it's Dobby. Let me say first of all, in Chamber of Secrets, I didn't like Dobby at all. This time, I actually like Dobby because he's not trying to, like, almost kill Harry just so he can leave Hogwarts. And the way Dobby looks is a lot better this time. Obviously, that has to deal with the fact that technology has evolved since 2002. The problem I have with Dobby is that he just pops up out of nowhere. He pops up, like, at the most convenient points, which is explained in Deathly Hallows Part 2. But in terms of, like, the movie, he just kind of pops up 5 movies too late. Because in the books, he actually pops up in several places where he doesn't in the movies. For example, I believe he was in Prisoner of Azkaban. But his reintroduction into the film series comes a little too late, and I honestly didn't feel much for him when he died. And I remember seeing this movie in the theater for the first time, and all the fans around me went, "Oh," when Dobby was dying. And I think I heard some people crying, which is fine, but I just didn't feel anything for him. One, because I didn't like him in Chamber of Secrets, and two, his reintroduction just came in too late, as I've said over and over. To be honest, Hedwig's death was actually sadder, and the main reason for that is because Hedwig's death came as a shock. I've heard about Dobby's death in Deathly Hallows before the movie came out, but I was like really shocked and sad that Hedwig, Harry's owl, died at the hands of the Death Eaters. So that's a legit problem I have with the movie. The other things that I have problems with are that the movie feels like it just goes on and on and on with no end in sight at all. And speaking of ending, it does end in a very unusual point. And given that Half-Blood Prince ended in a very anticlimactic way, and then this one did, you don't want to give any slack. However, this is part one of a two-part adaptation, so I guess, like, looking at the whole film, if you were to do a supercut of Deathly Hallows, the ending that they chose, where Voldemort finds the Elder Wand, was probably the best place they could have ended part one. And as for the pacing of the movie, where it just feels like it goes on forever, admittedly, it does add to the mood of the movie, where the heroes are desperately trying to figure out how to destroy the Horcruxes. So I can kind of let those aspects slide. So overall, Deathly Hallows Part 1 is really good. It's not great, because it does have some pacing issues, and it does seem to drag at points. However, the atmosphere works, the tension works, it's got really great performances, and it's just a really well-made movie all around. However, I would never recommend watching Deathly Hallows Part 1 by itself. Honestly, for me, you have to watch Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 back-to-back. And that's my review for Deathly Hallows Part 1. Next week is the last movie, Deathly Hallows Part 2, and I cannot wait to talk about that one. So, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there's only one.